All right, the objection's been overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Albee.
Sorry, I guess I'll ask that the last question be read back again. Thank you.
Question, and you had stole a firearm? Answer, no.
As of September 6, 2007, as you sat in that Kenosha County Jail, you were facing that charge for theft of a firearm as accused by your mother, right?
Yes.
Now, in April 2007, you went to a vitamin shop in Wauwatosa, right?
Yes.
And you talked to the person at the counter, asking some questions about health and vitamins and things like that for about an hour, right?
Yes.
And this person nicely answered all your questions, right?
Yes.
And then she opened the cash register and you reached in and grabbed as much money as you could and ran away, right?
Yes.
And then the detective called you the next day, right?
No.
Now, your claim is that you told on yourself?
I turned myself in. I called the store, told them who I was, gave them my name, address, phone number, and where they could reach me, that I would be to turn myself in the next morning.
Now, you ended up being sentenced on that case in November, right?
Yes.
You were still facing a sentencing in September 6, 2007 as you sat in the Kenosha County Jail, right?
Well, I was placed in a program called Justice 2000, where I was to complete for 4 months, do a restorative justice program that if I was to complete it, and that sentence would be expunged from my record.
Right. And you probably figured that a bank robbery would mean that you hadn't successfully completed that program and you'd have to be sentenced, right?
Yes.
And you knew that on September 6, 2007 when you got to the Kenosha County Jail, right?
Yes.
And your attorney at sentencing indicated on your behalf that they figured out who you were and that the detective called you on the phone. Right?
No, that's not how it happened.
You remember your attorney saying that, right?
I have no recollection of that. If that's what she said, then she was mistaken.
And why is it, it's your claim that you contacted the police on your own, huh?
I contacted the store contacted the police.
And why is it that you did that? Why did you call the store?
Because I knew that what I had did was wrong, and I felt guilty about it, and I turned myself in, and I brought the money back.
But then that was what, about 2 months before you robbed the bank in Gurnee, Illinois?
That happened in April, May, yes, about 2 months.
And you only did that as an act of desperation.
Yes.
And that $24,000 only lasted you and your desperate family until August when you had to commit another bank robbery.
Yes, we were so far behind in bills, yes, it only lasted a short time.
Now, as you sat there on September 6, 2007, you also knew that the police had searched your home on August 26, 2007, right?
Yes.
They had searched your home in West Bend, right?
Yes.
And they'd found about 200 grams of marijuana, right?
Yes.
And that's a dealer amount of marijuana, right?
That's what they say.
Well, is that a dealer amount of marijuana?
Not for me.
So you were smoking that much marijuana that 200 grams is just a user amount for you?
Yes.
Okay. And you stole that marijuana from a drug dealer, right?
That's just what I told them, yes.
Oh, that wasn't true?
No, not that, no.
So you lied to the FBI when you told them that you had stolen that marijuana from a drug dealer?
Well, yes.
That was a lie
Yes, that was a lie, yes.
to the FBI.
Yes.
And you know you could be charged with that, right?
Yeah, I know that too.
And they also found a loaded Colt revolver in your home, right?
Yes,
And it's illegal for you to have because you're a convicted felon, right?
yes.
And you told them that you stole that from a drug dealer.
That I did.
So you did steal that from the drug dealer.
No, I didn't.
You did steal the gun from the drug dealer?
No.
Oh, so you lied to them about that too?
Yes, I lied to protect my family. Yes, I did.
Okay, so you will lie to protect your family, right?
In that instance, I did, yes.
Right, and you'll lie to protect yourself?
No, anything I've done, I've admitted to.
Well, why did you lie about the gun and the marijuana? Who were you protecting in your family?
Well, I didn't want my fiance to be charged with any of that because she had sole custody of our daughter, and I didn't want her to go to jail. But in her own defense, she admitted verbally and in a written statement to the DA in West Bend that the gun was hers.
Well, when did she do that?
She did that in October, early October.
And that's because if you possess that gun, that could affect your sentence in the federal court, right?
No, that's because the gun was hers and I had no knowledge of it being in the house. I told her that I wasn't able to be around any firearms.
She's not a convicted felon, right?
No, she's not.
So it's not unlawful for her to have the gun,
It's
right?
unlawful for the gun to be in our house while I'm living there, yes.
It's not a crime for her to have a gun, right?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for legal conclusion. There's no evidence.
If he knows, you can answer.
You know that, right?
Yes, I know that.
And so if she admitted to being admitted that the gun was hers, then that might get them to dismiss the charge against you, right?
If they so choose to.
Right. You know that you're now facing felon in possession of a firearm charge in Washington County, right?
Yes,
And you're being charged with possession with intent to deliver that marijuana, right?
yes,
That marijuana and the gun that you admitted to the FBI you had stolen from a drug dealer, right?
yes,
And you also had possession of what, a stolen stereo that they found,
yes,
right? And you're facing charges for that too.
yes.
Did you tell the FBI you had stolen that stereo?
No,
Did you tell them you knew the stereo was stolen?
no. What Kim had talked to them about that.
And did you tell them that you had stolen the tires that were on your vehicle?
No, I didn't tell them that either.
But they were stolen, right?
No.
And so as you sat there on September 6, 2007, you were facing quite a bit of time in prison, weren't you?
Yes,
You're facing 20 years for bank robbery, right?
40.
20 for each one, right?
20 for each one, yes.
So we got another 20. And by the way, what would happen if you were convicted of that theft of a firearm? Would that have affected your federal sentencing?
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with federal law.
Well, do you recall having a telephone conversation with your wife in which you were worrying about 30 to life?
That's what they told me when I first appeared in federal court in Milwaukee.
That you could be facing 30 to life?
Right.
And why was that?
Because they were considering me a career criminal.
An armed career criminal even, right?
Yes, I believe so.
If you were convicted of that theft for a firearm, correct?
Well, not just that, but with the firearm also from West Bend.
If you were convicted of either one of those things before you're sentenced in federal court, you could be facing 30 to life, right?
Even after.
So you get 30 to life if you get convicted of either of those things, right? And so you were facing 10.
Objection, Your Honor. First of all, counsel just asked a question, then put an end on it without giving the witness an opportunity to answer
Was
the
there an
question.
answer? Do you recall the last question, sir?
No, because
You were facing 30 to life upon conviction of theft of the firearm or the possession of a firearm by a felon in your home.
well, I was facing 30 to life based on my overall record at that time.
If you were convicted of one of those things in addition to your overall record, right?
I don't know. Like I said, when I first made my initial court appearance in federal court in Milwaukee, on the paperwork, that's what it said. I was facing, I could possibly be facing 30 to life. It didn't stipulate according to what charges, what would be held accountable for. It just had it all in paperwork.
And you're 40 years old?
Yes,
So 30-year sentence, you'd be 70?
yes,
You're facing 10 years for the theft of a firearm, is that right?
14.
14 years?
Yeah.
All right. You're facing 10 for something? 14, all right. Well, let's cross that one out. 14. You're facing 3 years for the marijuana?
7.
7, all right. We'll call that THC. Felon in possession?
Felon with, yes, in possession, yeah.
Felon in possession of a firearm, how much is that?
Well, it was 10 years with a 4-year enhancer.
All right, so that's another 14?
No, it's just one charge. It's 3 charges. It was theft, possession of THC with the intent to deliver, and theft of, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The theft of a firearm I was only facing 6 years for,
All right, 6. All right.
which got
My chart's getting messed up, but
Yeah.
all right.
which ultimately got
Felon.
dismissed.
In possession is 14.
Right.
THC is 7. And it's 6 for the theft of a firearm?
Yes.
All right.
Under state law, the theft of a firearm is, well, I'm not sure. Rely on these things.
Okay. And then,
Pardon me?
Said it sounds like he's an expert.
Well, possession of a firearm is 5 and 5 plus 4 for habitual.
and the receipt of stolen property, how much is that?
9 months.
And 9 months for the theft in Wauwatosa.
Yes.
So yeah, another 1.5?
Yeah.
All right. So my not so good looking chart is 40, 54, 61, 67, 68.5 years you're facing?
68 to life.
Now that that theft of a firearm charge brought by your mother, when you went to court on that, they imposed something called the no contact order, right?
Yes, they did.
And a no contact order means you can't see your mother, right?
Yes.
It means you can't talk to her on the phone, right?
Yes.
It means you can't write her any letters, right?
Yes.
And while you were in the Kenosha County Jail, you called your mom, right?
Yes.
You talked to your mom on the phone.
Yes.
That would be considered bail jumping, right?
Objection, Your Honor. I disagree with that. The witness was not out on bond.
You were out on bond from your Milwaukee case, weren't you?
No, I was incarcerated at the time. For my Milwaukee case from the health food store, I was out on a conditional bond. I didn't have to post any money or nothing. It just was a written bond.
The objection's overruled.
And in Milwaukee, you had been released on bond and then picked up for the bank robberies, right?
Yes.
So you were out on bond in Milwaukee, right?
Well, it wasn't a bond. I was placed into a program that upon completion of the program, the charge would be expunged.
But for the theft of a firearm charge, you were on bail for that, true?
No, because I had never got arrested on that until I got arrested for the bank robbery.
Mr. Thompson, let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit D100.
Your Honor, I object on 2 grounds.
Would you pass that up, sir? What's the objection?
Okay, first, this is extrinsic evidence, and counsel seeking to impeach the witness on the basis of extrinsic evidence. And number 2, this witness has indicated he was not released on conditions that, I understand that if he was out on bond, there would be conditional
Well,
bond that
let me
applies.
just interrupt you for a minute and see if we can. Number 1, it's not extrinsic evidence because it's in the cross-examination. The rule is generally designed to prevent the consumption of time which would be necessary if other witnesses were called to impeach. I don't think it covers impeachment by a document which allegedly bears his signature. Number 2, he has testified that he was released on a recognizance on the Milwaukee charge. So that would mean that he would be covered by the bond conditions.
Your Honor, my understanding is that he indicated that he was released on the vitamin store charge.
Yes.
Didn't that allegedly happen in Wauwatosa?
I don't know where it happened.
Did you say that was Wauwatosa?
Yes.
Well, that's Milwaukee County.
But Judge, this,
It doesn't matter which county it's in. The question is which charge he was released. So my understanding is that his testimony is that he didn't believe he'd been charged yet with anything pertaining to the theft of a firearm, that he was out on the vitamin store charge. That was my
Well,
understanding.
what's 07 CF 3936?
it's theft of a firearm, and
Oh, excuse me.
his mother, whose name
All right,
is
I
identified.
understand. Okay, that makes sense. What about this?
Well, his mother is identified as a person not to have contact with. It's the CF number for theft of a firearm, and he signed it, which certainly suggests other than what he's testified to.
The objection's overruled.
Mr. Thompson, Exhibit 100 is a no-contact order prohibiting you from having contact with Cleo Thompson, right?
Yes.
Cleo Thompson is your mother, right?
Yes.
And that is a court order that you received, correct?
Yes.
And that no contact order says you, the defendant, shall not contact the above person or location by telephone, right?
Yes.
And it says this is an official order of the court, right?
Yes.
And it says any violation of this court order is a crime and can result in immediate arrest. You, the defendant, could also be charged with the crime of bail jumping in violation of Section 946.49, right?
Yes.
And that's your signature on this document, right?
Yes, it is.
And you were aware of the no contact order, right?
Yes.
And you even mentioned that in your telephone call with your mother, right?
Yes.
And you said, Mom, don't come visit me tomorrow. There's a no contact order, right?
Yes.
And the reason you were talking to your mother was because you were putting pressure on her not to go to court to testify against you for that theft of a firearm, right?
No.
And you talked to your father right after that to complain about your mother,
Yes.
right? And you said, she gave me life and now she's going to take it away, right?
Yes.
And you were telling Kim to put pressure on your mother, right?
I asked him to speak with her, yes.
You had a number of people trying to push your mother to not show up in court for this theft of a firearm charge, right?
No, just Kim.
And your father?
He never spoke with her.
But you asked him to.
Yes, I did.
And in fact, your mother didn't show up for court and you got that charge dismissed.
Yes.
But now you could be charged with violating that no contact order, right?
So be it.
Right? And you're hoping that Mr. Jamboys is sufficiently happy with your testimony that he doesn't call the prosecutor in Milwaukee and suggest you be charged with the bail jumping that you committed in the Kenosha County Jail, right?
Well, right now my concern is based upon that issue. I mean, I'm not concerned about that.
Well, you don't want to go to prison for longer, right?
It's a misdemeanor charge. I mean, it has no effect on, it's not going to have any adverse effect on what time I get.
Well, the theft of a firearm is a felony, right?
Yeah, it got dismissed though.
Well, without prejudice, right?
It still got dismissed.
That means they could bring it back, right?
If they so choose to find other evidence, yes, but they got dismissed.
And you know that prosecutors take into consideration whether there was some improper influence from the defendant that caused the witness not to show up and the case to be dismissed, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation from this witness as to what prosecutors do or do not take into consideration.
If he knows, the objection will be overruled.
I'm not a prosecutor. I don't know a prosecutor's job.
So it's your belief that that wouldn't affect their decision at all?
I don't know.
Now, you're here testifying because you want Mr. Jamboys to make a good recommendation to the federal prosecutor and judge, right?
No, he has nothing to do with that sentence. That's in Chicago. Wisconsin jurisdiction has nothing to do with federal jurisdiction in Chicago.
Well, you understand that one of the things that a court can consider in sentencing you is whether you've cooperated, right?
I understand that.
Right? And that's what you're hoping is for some consideration, right?
No, I don't need consideration. I already signed a plea agreement. So what I need consideration from this court?
Well, because you'd like to get a sentence that's better than what the plea agreement calls for, right?
I got a good sentence on my plea agreement already.
So you don't want a better sentence?
Why? There's no need for it. I got 5 years.
But you're still facing over 20 years in Washington County, right?
Yes.
You could use Mr. Jamboy's help there, right?
I haven't asked for anyone's help in any of my legal defense.
And now, Mr. Jamboy said that you weren't promised anything in this case. That's not exactly true, right?
Why would you say that?
Well, remember during your interview on October 10th, 2007, Mr. Jamboys told you that he had told your attorney he'd be happy to write a letter to the judge describing your participation in the case, your cooperation with the authorities, and your agreement to testify, right?
Well, that was between him and my attorney. I don't know nothing about that.
Just answer the question which was asked.
I don't know. How can I answer? I don't know. You said he spoke with my attorney, right?
I said he told you that, right?
He said the question was about an interview, apparently.
Let me do that again. You remember sitting down with Mr. Jamboys and Miss Gabrielle and a detective named Miles, right?
Yes.
On about October 10th, right?
Yes.
And at that time, Mr. Jamboys told you that he had told your attorney, and he's telling you this, that he had told your attorney he'd be happy to write a letter to the judge describing your participation in the case, your cooperation with the authorities in the case, and your agreement to testify, right?
Yes.
And that's something that federal judge can consider, right?
I assume that he has the option to, but I don't know.
And so on September 6th, well, let me take a step back. You said that there was an act of desperation that caused you to take those, to rob those banks, right?
Yes.
And how much more desperate were you, sir, on September 6, 2007, when you had all those same financial problems, and now you're facing at least 65 years, and as you say, maybe life in prison?
What's the difference then, you say?
But you're a lot more desperate then than you were even in the summer that caused you to rob a bank, right?
Well, no, you have to realize this, that of those 2 bank robberies, I turned myself in on one of those they had no clue about. I admitted to it without them even charging me with it. So I bought that on myself.
After you were arrested on the other bank robbery, right?
Right. After I was arrested for one, I admitted to another on my own. No one, if I hadn't admitted to it, it would have went unsolved.
So you think you deserve a lot of credit because you told them about a second bank robbery, even though you hadn't turned yourself in on either bank robbery?
I just admit to what I do wrong, that's all.
Okay. Now, you remember when a man named David Martin was shot in the back of the head?
Who?
David Martin, your niece's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I know David.
That's right. And you lied to the police and told them you didn't shoot him in the head, right?
No, I didn't lie to him.
He was your sister's boyfriend. He said you were sitting in the back seat of a car and he was in the
No.
front seat and he got
That's-
shot in the head.
I don't know where you got the information from, but I don't even have a sister.
If I said sister, I'm mistaken. Niece. Niece or cousin, right?
Yes.
Miss Bankhead, right?
Yes.
So that's the part I got wrong. But you lied to the police and lied to your probation officer and said you did not shoot Mr. Martin in the back of the head, right?
I didn't shoot Mr. Martin.
You were charged with that, right?
Yes, and it got dismissed.
Got dismissed because Mr. Martin couldn't testify, right?
No, it got dismissed because Mr. Martin is a liar and it caught 5 cases prior to that court date.
He refused to testify in the case, right?
Exactly.
So, in that case, you found out the very day Mr. Martin got shot that he was accusing you of being being the shooter, right?
Yes.
And you were on parole at the time, right?
No. Let me see. Yes, at that time, yes.
Yes, because then you went undercover. You went underground to avoid being picked up on your parole hold for a couple months, right?
Yes.
And then there was a stop of your vehicle, right?
Yes.
And when the police came, you identified yourself as Billy Wilson, right?
Yes.
And you lied to your probation officer and told them that you didn't call yourself Billy Wilson, right?
Yes, I did.
And
Yes, you did lie, or?
Yes, I did lie.
and you had a crack pipe on you, right?
Yes.
And you lied to your probation agent about that and said it wasn't a crack pipe. True?
No, I didn't. Everything I told my probation officers, everything's in the police report.
Let me show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 101. And that's a statement you wrote to your probation officer.
No, I didn't write this. That's not my handwriting.
It's a summary of the statement you gave to, it says, David Thompson made the following statement on February 19th, 2003 to Scott Keller, right?
Objection, Your Honor. It also says at the bottom, defendant refused to sign this statement.
The objection is sustained. It's not shown to be a statement he has adopted.
Well, you refused to sign that because
Because
you were
it's not true.
facing charges.
I refuse to sign it because the statement isn't true.
What part isn't true?
The last part of it.
That you said it wasn't a crack pipe?
No, hold on, no, not that. What was the question you asked me prior to bringing this here?
That's right. I asked you
If I
whether you
lied to my
agent about whether it was a crack pipe.
right.
And you did, right?
No, I didn't. That's why I refused to sign it.
So the reason you refused to sign it is because your agent said it was not a crack pipe and you were insisting that it was a crack pipe. That's what you want us to believe?
The reason I refused to sign it is because agents lie too.
Is because what?
Agents lie as well.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand what you're saying.
I refuse to sign it because probation agents lie as well.
So you weren't lying, the probation agent was lying.
No, he just went upon the statement that he received from officers.
Well, in this statement to the agents, you said, the officers never asked me what my name was during the arrest?
Your Honor, I object to this being this cross-examination on this statement. It's a statement,
This is someone else's statement. It's someone else's, but it's someone else's account, and he's not subject to impeachment on it.
Okay, I got you, I understand. And also, when you were on probation in the year 2000, Miss Bankhead, is she your cousin or your niece? Or
My niece,
She's your niece?
yes,
And she said you put your hands around her neck, right?
yes.
And you lied and said you didn't, right?
I can't recall what I said from 2000.
Well, did you put your hands around her neck or didn't you?
No, I slapped her and I pushed her against the wall.
And then you refused to, you were on parole then too, right?
Yes,
And then you absconded, right?
yes,
And you did that because you were scared to be locked up, right?
exactly, yes,
Right? And you also cut off your bracelet.
yes,
And the reason you did that is because you couldn't take going back to jail after being incarcerated for 8 years, right?
yes,
Right. So you'll do what it takes to avoid being in prison, right?
that's your assumption.
Well, you'll put pressure on your mother, right?
No,
Well, you said you asked him to put pressure on your
I
mother.
put pressure on them to tell the truth.
By violating the no contact order.
Yes,
I was just clearing my throat.
Okay.
That was not a sign.
That was, and Mr. Thompson, you have some mental health problems?
why would you ask that? I don't know. I
I
mean,
didn't hear what you said, sir.
I asked him, why would he ask that? What, I mean,
Go ahead and answer the question.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to answer that. But I mean,
I
what?
told him to answer the question.
I wouldn't say so. No,
Are you on medication?
I take Indocin and allopurinol.
I'm sorry, I take,
Indocin and allopurinol for my gout. That's the only medication I take.
Have you been treated for depression?
I have been in the past, yes.
And you're not on medication for that now?
No,
And going back to, I mean, fair to say you're very worried about being locked up for a long time, right?
no, I'm not worried about it because I'm capable of admitting what I've done, and I'm resolved to accepting whatever consequences I have to face.
Now, you recall telling a judge back in 1992, you compared the feeling of being in jail to being trapped in the same way that a person in a pizza parlor would feel trapped having a Tech 9 stuck in his face?
Well, you have to understand the dynamics of that case.
Well, the
which,
question was, do you recall having stated that to the judge?
92? No, I don't know. I can't even say. That's over 18 years ago. I don't know.
You don't recall saying that to,
No.
to the judge? Will refresh your recollection to review your words at the transcript?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What is this,
Beginning.
1992? Your Honor, I guess I object to this on relevance grounds. I really, if you receive the statement, I don't see how it's relevant at all.
Any objection is sustained.
And when you were Going back to that time when David Martin had accused you of shooting him in the head, and then you were stopped and falsely gave the name Billy Wilson? You have to say yes for the
Yes,
court report.
yes.
You also then physically fought with the officers to avoid being taken into custody, right?
Yes,
Because you didn't want to go back to prison, right?
exactly, yes.
And so that was worth having a physical fight with the officers.
At that time, yes.
On a number of occasions, you falsely denied to your probation agent that you were using drugs, right?
Every time, yes.
Dozens of times?
I don't know how many times, but I was in denial about it every time I took one, though.
You were using drugs throughout the time you were on parole,
Most of the time, yes.
and you'd lie to your agent when you had your regular meetings.
Yes.
Now, you arrived in the Kenosha jail on September 6th, true?
Somewhere around that date, yes.
And you said Mr. Jensen was, how'd you put it, standoffish for a couple days?
Yes.
And on September 8th, you wrote your fiancee, Kim, a letter, right? You recall that?
I wrote her several letters.
All right. Well, let me see if I can find the one. You have 9 convictions now,
Yes.
and you're facing you have 3 pending charges beyond that,
Well,
right?
those are included in the 9 offenses.
Well, you haven't been convicted of those 3 charges in Washington
Oh, yeah,
County.
Washington County, no, I haven't.
So you have 9 plus 3 still pending,
Yes.
right? Okay, and you wrote a letter to Kim, and you wrote to her, tell the detective I have info on 2 murders. And you were also trying to get some credit for some claimed information about something that happened in Milwaukee, right?
Yes.
Right. And then you wrote, it's time for me to help myself, right?
Yes, I
It
did.
was time for you to help yourself. Mr. Thompson, who were you helping when you robbed that bank in Gurnee, Illinois?
I was allegedly, to my belief, helping my family.
And who were you helping when you robbed that bank in Madison, Wisconsin?
Same people, my family, myself and my family.
Who were you helping with all that marijuana in your house in August
That was
2007?
just me. I wasn't helping anyone with that. That was just purely a possession of marijuana.
What other good deeds did you do last year?
Only good deeds I've done was admit to what I've convicted of and what I've committed.
Now it is time for you to help yourself. Now, when you came to the Kenosha County Jail, you were transported with other prisoners, right?
Yes.
And one of those prisoners that you were transported with was Bernard Bush, right?
No.
So you're asserting you did not come to Kenosha with Bernard Bush?
I'm positive I didn't come to Kenosha with Bernard Bush.
Did Bernard Bush tell you immediately upon arrival at the jail that people had been beating up Mark Jensen in the jail?
No, not upon my immediate arrival, he didn't.
When did he tell you that?
Probably second or third day that I was there. Because he was going to court when I initially arrived there. He was at court in Racine.
And so how many days were you there before you spoke with Mark Jensen?
Probably around my third day.
And this is the day that he was on the phone?
No,
How many days after you got there was it that he was on the phone?
maybe a week or two.
And you had demanded that Mark make a phone call for you, right?
No, I requested that Mark make a phone call for me.
You saw that he was on the phone with somebody, right?
No, he wasn't on the phone when I asked him this.
You told him that the next time you make a call, pass on this phone number, right?
No, I asked Mark, could he hook me up a phone call next time he got on the phone. I wanted to call my wife and see how she was doing.
And then you saw Mark make a call, right?
Yeah, he made about 4 or 5 calls.
And he didn't get your wife on the phone, right?
No, he didn't.
And so you punched him, right?
No, I didn't punch him, I shoved him.
You punched him in the face, right?
No.
You punched him in the neck, right?
No.
You only shoved him, is what you say?
That's what I said.
And yelled at him?
I didn't yell at him, I just shoved him. I told him, don't lie to me. Don't play with me, don't lie to me, because I'm not gonna play with him or lie to him.
Well, if you lied to him, he really couldn't do anything about it, could he?
No.
And if you are unhappy with him, you can shove him around, right?
No, but I did though, and I apologized to him for that.
Right. But you were unhappy with him this time, and so at the very least, you shoved him around, right?
Exactly, yes.
And you took his commissary, right? You stole his commissary?
Never took anything from him. He gave everything away he had.
And you told him that if he didn't make the call, he'd be eating through a straw, right?
No, never that. No. No.
And so, fair to say you were trying to intimidate Mark when you pushed him?
No, Mark didn't have to be intimidated. Mark was free-spirited. Everything you asked him for, he would give away.
And so, the way you respond to a free-spirited person who's giving everything away is you just give him a few shoves.
No, that's what you say. No, that's not how I respond to it.
Well, you shoved him, right?
I shoved him and it had nothing to do with what he was giving away, though.
You shoved him because he wouldn't make a phone call for you,
No,
right?
because he lied to me, yes. Because he promised me something that he didn't do.
And do you think that if he told you he was going to do something, he might have done it just to appease you, right?
Probably so.
And you had heard that Mark had been beaten up by other people for not giving away his food, right?
I had heard that, yes.
And so you knew that maybe a little force might get him to do what you wanted him to do, right?
No, that was never my intention.
A little intimidation might help you out, right?
I mean, how would you intimidate someone that's already passive?
Well, a passive person can be most easily intimidated, right?
If you say so. I mean, not in this case.
You knew he wasn't going to fight back, right?
I had no intention of trying to fight him.
Well, you shoved him around.
No, I shoved him one time. I pushed him.
Two hands?
One hand.
Just one hand?
Just one hand.
And you don't think that was intimidating to Mark Jensen?
Well, I don't know Mark Jensen's character. I don't know if he took that as being intimidating or not.
Well, fair to say he was not as sophisticated in the ways of jail life as you were?
I don't know that either.
You don't know that?
I don't know Mark Jensen's history.
And there was a pretty well understood unwritten rule in that jail that if you tell on somebody for being physical with you, that was going to cost you a lot more, right?
If that was his understanding, I never stipulated that to him.
Well, you were aware of that understanding in the jail, right?
No, I had just gotten there. I wasn't aware of anything.
You don't think that was general knowledge in the jail?
No. Not with my standpoint, no.
And so Mark, at the very least, knew that if you had a perception that he was lying to you, that might cause you to be physical, right?
I don't know what his perception was.
Objection. It calls for speculation as to what this witness thought Mr. Jensen, or what Mr. Jensen would know.
We've had this objection occur before. People don't always talk and think the way lawyers would like them to. That is to say that we, in our ordinary lives, incorporate some degree of supposition about others and what others think. If I left home this morning and my wife was waving a pan and red-faced and scolding me for something, I would say, well, she's probably angry. That didn't really happen. I can communicate that to you even though, by also incorporating my opinions and experiences when I tell you what actually happened. I'm going to let the witness testify, but keep in and answer the question. But I keep in mind that he is incorporating some degree of supposition as to how others react to his behavior and how others think in answering the question. Any question about that? Okay, go ahead.
Did I have it read back? Thank you.
All right, excuse me. And so Mark at the very least knew that if you had a perception that he was lying to you, that might cause you to be physical, right?
No, that wouldn't cause me to be physical.
Do you think Mark would have thought that?
I don't know what Mark would have thought.
Well, based on, when you shoved him, did you say, don't tell me you're going to do something and not do it?
Yes, I did say that.
So you can understand how Mark might think that if he crossed you, that would be your response the next time too.
No, I don't know. I mean, you have to take every situation as it occurs. If that's what he thought, then that's what his own perception was.
Well, a perception brought on by you shoving him or hitting him.
If that's what he says.
Now, let me switch gears and I'll come back to this in a second. How many times did you talk to police in this case about Mark Jensen?
I don't know. I can't even recall how many times.
How many times did you talk to Mr. Jamboys or Ms. Gabrielle?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know how many times. All I know is that I talked to people. I didn't keep count of how many times I talked to or who I talked to.
Is it more than 10 that you talked to these two?
I don't know.
You don't know if it's more than 10?
I've talked to several people. I don't know how many. I can't remember. I don't know.
When's the last time you spoke with either of these two?
I spoke with Mr. Jim Boyd last night, and I don't know when last night was. I spoke with, may have been months since the last time I spoke with Miss, what's her name?
It's Miss Gabrielle.
Miss Gabrielle.
So you spoke with Mr. Jamboys last night. Is that right?
Yes.
And when was the last time you'd spoken with him before that?
Several months.
And where did you meet with Mr. Jamboys?
On what occasion?
Last night.
Here.
And what kind of room did you meet in?
I don't know, just a regular room, I guess. I don't know.
Were you together in the same room?
Yes.
And did he show you any documents?
No.
Did he show you any kind of transcript of the video recorded statement you gave on October 10th?
No.
Did you watch that video recorded statement?
No, I didn't.
Now, in that video recorded statement, did you state to Mr. Jamboys, Ms. Gabrielle, and Detective Miles We rode to town with this guy named Bernard Bush.
Excuse me, Counsel, could you give me the page number?
Sure, it's page 5. I'm sorry, 2/3 of the way down. We rode to town with this guy named Bernard Bush. Bush was kind of like, just was telling me about dude. He's getting beat up and people taking his canteen money.
I never said we rode to town or anywhere. Me and Bernard Bush never been anywhere in the vehicle at any time together.
So you deny saying that at the time?
I have no recollection of saying that because me and Mr. Bernard Bush have never been in a vehicle together at the same time at any point.
You do acknowledge the second part that he was telling you that Mark Jensen was getting beat up and people were taking his canteen money, right?
Yes, he did tell me that.
And he told you that Mr. Jensen was the defendant in a high publicity case, right?
Yes, he eventually did tell me that also.
And you knew from your experience that that was the kind of case where you could get the most credit for trying to set somebody up, right?
Well, I didn't know that either.
But you didn't know that you get more for setting up somebody charged with first-degree murder than somebody charged with, say, possession of stolen property or drunk driving or something?
How would I know the difference? No.
Do you have any are there any other notes that you have about this matter?
No.
Are you telling me you didn't review any notes, reports, anything last night?
I personally didn't review anything last night, no.
Did Mr. Jamboys read you things?
He may have read some things. I don't recall exactly where they were from. He had this folder with him. I don't know where he got his notes from or whatever. He just talked to me.
Well, how long did he talk to you?
A few minutes, just a couple minutes, about 5 minutes.
And you don't know what it was that he read to you?
I guess basically just the format of the questions I would be hearing today.
I beg your pardon, just the format of the questions?
The format of some of the questions I'd be hearing today.
Now, so it was you were there, I'm sorry, how long before you began having conversations with Mark Jensen?
Probably about 3 days.
And then what kind of conversations did you have at that time? Was it just about making the telephone call to your wife?
I'm not sure which came first, but the extent of our conversation were at first just about family, and then I saw his picture on his wall, and I asked him about his case, and he started to explain some of it to me.
And you did get Mr. Jensen to make a call for you, right?
Yes, he made a call for me.
You even grabbed the phone from him and talked to his parents, right?
I didn't grab the phone from him. He passed the phone to me.
And Mr. Jensen was somewhat distressed during that phone call, right?
I don't know. You have to ask Mr. Jensen that.
Did you see signs of distress with Mr. Jensen?
No.
Did he seem upset about having to make this call for you?
No.
And this was after you had shoved and pushed him, right?
Yes.
And in total, it was the J block that you were in with Mr. Jensen, right?
Yes.
And you were there about 3 weeks?
3 weeks, roughly about 3 weeks, yeah.
And then you moved to K? Is that what you said?
Yes. I didn't say that, but that's where I moved to, K Block, yes.
Okay. And how long were you in K?
I was in K Block up until about maybe a month and a half ago.
Till about the end of November?
Yeah, about the second week of November.
So where in this 3 weeks do you claim that Mr. Jensen started crying?
Second week, between the second and third week.
Now, you met with prosecutors, these prosecutors, both Mr. Jamboys and Ms. Gabrielle, on September 18th. You recall that?
I don't know what day it was when I met with them. Yeah.
And you met with them and the detective wasn't with them that time, right?
The first time we met, yes, no, it was just them two.
And that was in the Kenosha County Jail, right?
Yes.
And there was no recording taken of that conversation, right?
I don't know.
None that you're aware of?
None that I was aware of. No.
You were aware that the second one was recorded?
Yes.
They told you it was going to be on video, right?
Yes.
Now, in this first conversation, you met with them for about an hour, right?
We were somewhere around there, yes.
And they asked you, and the reason that they came to meet with you is because your fiance had called them and said you wanted to speak with them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so they were interested in exactly what you had to say that you thought would be important in this case.
Yes.
And you told them whatever you thought was important during that hour, right?
Whatever, yes, whatever I thought was important, yes.
Right. And at no time during that entire 1 hour conversation did you ever say that Mark Jensen confessed anything to you, right?
I don't know. It was no recording.
That wasn't the question. Well, go ahead.
Oh, so if it's not recorded, then you think you're free to spin it however you want?
No, I just don't. I mean, if I admitted to, if I told them something, I mean, if I hadn't told them all the facts at that time, and I had time to remember more facts, and I brought up more information during our meetings.
Would there be anything more important than a confession if it actually occurred?
Well, you know what? As basic, at that point in time, we really hadn't. He hadn't even questioned me about had Mark made a confession. The question was about the phone call.
You asked them to come see you,
right? About the phone call, yes.
Well, you had decided that you wanted to help yourself, right?
Yes.
And what could help yourself more than a confession?
Well, I wasn't basically trying to even speak upon a confession. My sole purpose for calling them was to talk about the phone call.
You didn't tell them about a confession, right?
Excuse me?
You did not tell them about a confession at that time.
Not in that first meeting, no.
Right. That's because none had happened, right?
If you say so.
And then after you had met with them you met with them again on October 10th, right?
Yes.
And between the time that you met with them in September and the time you met with them in October, the trial had been adjourned, right?
I don't know.
The trial had been postponed, Mr. Jensen's trial?
From October 8th?
Yes.
Yes.
And along with the news that the trial was postponed were newspaper articles, right?
Yes.
Newspaper articles that included your name in them, right?
I never saw a newspaper. I mean, I didn't get the paper. No one on our part received the paper but Jensen, and I wasn't on the same side as he was on.
So, so you never saw a newspaper article?
I'm not saying I didn't see it. I'm saying that no one on our part got a newspaper. Okay, I read the article when someone came onto our unit that had a newspaper. That's when I was aware of what was said in the paper.
By the time you spoke with these prosecutors on October 10th, you had read the newspaper with your name in it, right?
On October 10th? I don't know. I can't say for sure what day it was or when it had occurred, but I know I read the paper at some point. Actually, I sent that clipping to my lawyer.
What is your memory now, sir? Had you read the newspaper by the time you talked to them on October 10th?
I don't know if I had or not. All I know is that I eventually read the article. I kept the clip and I mailed it to my lawyer. I don't know exactly what day it was. But yes, I did read it.
And you read in the newspaper about what Aaron Dillard had said, right?
Aaron Dillard, briefly, I focused more or less what was said in the paper about me and my fiance.
Well, you're a smart guy. You have your GED, right?
Yes.
You like to read the newspaper, right?
On occasion, when it's something that I want to read in there, yeah. I mean,
Right.
I had no interest in what him and Mr. Dillard was talking about, just with what they were saying about me.
Mr. Thompson, you had enormous interest in Mark Jensen's case, right?
No, I didn't say his case. I said in what Mr. Dillard had to say.
Do you recall, this is page 19, counsel,
Of the October 10th.
of the October 10th interview. Do you recall on October 10th saying to Mr. Jamboys, Ms. Gabrielle, and Detective Miles, "Oh man, I got back from court the other day. They had the newspaper spread out on the table, and I looked over at it, and it said, and they said, David Thompson." I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why you got to say my name like that for? They said you all over the news. I said, get the hell out of here. I ain't in no newspaper. Right?
Yes?
So you had the newspaper at that time, right?
At that time, yeah. That's when I first became aware that the paper was on the file when I got back from court.
Right. And that's when you saw the information about Aaron Dillard, right?
Well, I didn't look at that until I flipped the newspaper over, because it was just, they had to just focus on just what I was saying at the time.
Right. And then you looked at Aaron Dillard after you looked at that, right?
Yes.
Right. And then you adopted what you read about Aaron Dillard and tried to claim that there was a confession when you talked to them on October 10th, right?
That's your statement. That's not mine.
But you didn't.
Question, yes or no?
No.
And you acknowledge you didn't say a word about it on September 18th in an hour conversation with these prosecutors, right?
No, because that's not what I was focused on. My whole purpose of talking to them was about the phone conversation. And that's all that I had focused on was that.
That is the whole plan you had put in motion to help yourself involve these telephone calls, right?
Exactly.
Right. And you had been made aware that Mr. Jensen had been coerced into putting money on people's books before, right?
Yes, I have heard that.
And when I say on people's books, what I mean is he had arranged to have some money put on somebody's commissary account, right?
Yes.
And commissary account allows the person in jail to buy things like coffee, sandwiches, toothbrush, soap,
Yes.
all those kind of things, right?
Yes.
And he had been intimidated into doing that for other people, right?
Yes.
And you were aware that if you could intimidate him enough, you could temporarily alleviate some of your family's financial problems, right?
I never made that statement.
I'm not asking if you made the statement, I'm asking you for the truth,
I
sir.
never assumed that.
Well, first you learned that you could intimidate him into making phone calls for you, right?
I didn't learn that either. I don't know if he was intimidated or not.
You don't know if your push and shove intimidated him?
I mean, I've been pushed and shoved. That doesn't mean I was intimidated by people that did it, though.
You had seen that Mark had been intimidated by a number of people on that
I hadn't seen one person that Mark Jensen had gave anything to that was forcibly taken from him, other than him giving it to him. I haven't saw not one commissary book that stated, well, Mark Jensen's family or Mark Jensen made this happen. I saw none of that.
Well, from your extensive experience in prison, you are aware that there are some people who choose to deal with the intimidators in the prison by just acquiescing to everything and trying to pacify them, right?
No.
Oh,
Because I've never been around those kind of people, and I've never done that myself.
I'm sorry?
So I've never put myself around those type of people, nor have I ever done that myself.
You had dozens.
We're gonna stop at this point. Let me ask that you return at 1 o'clock. Is that convenient for everybody? 1 o'clock, and please don't talk about the case during the break.
Please all rise.